My name is Jennifer Woods. I am a member at Roberts Tabernacle Church of God of Prophecy, and I've always been involved in youth activities across the state, but this is my first time joining Get Real, and I'm excited to be with you all today. My job is a social worker, and I do investigations for Allen County and Scottsville, Kentucky. Part of my job entails doing investigations into child abuse and neglect. Some of those cases include human trafficking cases, and that is what my subject is today that I'd like to talk to you all about. I do have something that is really special to my heart that I wanted to share with you all. It's this first slide, and I will be sharing a series of PowerPoints throughout this, and I hope that I can answer questions for you all today, educate you all, and hopefully provide some prevention, because this is something that I want to help prevent our young girls and young men, but especially the young girls, from falling into during their lifetime. The first slide says, He heals the wounds of every shattered heart. And once you become involved in human trafficking, whether you're the victim, you know the victim, or it's someone in your family, that's something that we want to help pray with you all about and let you know that God does heal. And it's hard to talk about the subject. It's hard to come forth when this has happened to you, but God does heal, and He will heal every shattered heart, whether it's this or anything else you're going through. God heals. And if you don't remember anything else today, know that God can heal your shattered heart. The first thing I'm going to talk to you about is the definition of human trafficking. It is defined as the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, obtaining, patronizing, soliciting of a person either for commercial sex or labor. And a lot of times the one will lead to the other. A lot of times it starts out as a lot of times this is called human slavery. And if you think about what it means to be enslaved to something, it means that you are owned by someone, or they proclaim ownership over you and against your will, and therefore you owe them deeds, or you have to perform things for them that you're not necessarily wanting to do. So labor, which providing jobs, or also the commercial sex. My next graph is the causes of human trafficking, and I don't want you to think just because one thing's on here that leads to the human trafficking, or you've seen this in a friend and now you're concerned. These are just someone has come up with. This is an overall thing to look for in human trafficking, and sometimes the causes. And I'm going to talk to you about each of these things. And just because you may see one of these things on here doesn't necessarily mean it's happening, but this is to bring awareness of things that could happen, or some of the causes that lead to someone falling into human trafficking or human laboring. A lot of times, and this, of course, this is a broad classification. You do fall into these things, but it doesn't mean that you will be a victim of human trafficking. This is just for information purposes. The lack of economic opportunities. A lot of times, a child that doesn't see that there's a potential for a good job in their community, or that they've seen parents not be employed, they're wanting the better things in life. They're wanting, a car sometime, or the newer clothes, or labels that goes with the clothing, a new purse that their friend has, or the newest iPhone, or the newest whatever is out there, the game system. And because they don't have a means to get those, they are seeking out these individuals that can provide things to them. And a lot of times that's how they get pulled into something, is because they want those things and their parents or their guardians don't have the ability to give it to them. So they see that these people can provide this, but in turn they fall victim of being trafficked. Another is gender discrimination, particularly in access to employment and education. If you're not well educated, and this was something during COVID, the numbers did rise because students wasn't getting to go to school. They wasn't having someone check on them daily. They wasn't having accountability with their peers, and peers were not seeing their other peers on a daily basis or at least a weekly basis. And so individuals were starting to fall into the feeling of needing to be needed. And when you begin to fall into this human trafficking, individuals make you feel needed, that you're wanted, and they put into your mind that they can make you feel important and that they can provide these things to you. But when they're actually grooming you for something in a lifestyle that's going to be full of heartache. Conflict is another thing. When children that come from homes that may be broken, or when they're trying to find their own identity and there's a parental-child conflict, and the children see that their parents are being way too strict, or that they feel like their parents don't care, they're preyed upon by some of the individuals that are in this human trafficking rings, and they put into their heads, your parents are just being strict and they don't want you to have, or your parents are dumb, or they're being too hard on you and you're never going to have a life. And they just keep planting these bad seeds, kind of like Satan does in our life, plants all these seeds. It makes you feel like you're not good enough, and that they break you down to build you up to what they want you to be. A breakdown in law and order. In other words, a lot of times, for example, our country experienced some rioting back this time last year, and that was a breakdown in law and order. When there's a breakdown in law and order, there's no one watching over our youth because they're trying to tend to what the whole population needs, and therefore traffickers take advantage of those situations. When it's like, I like to use the analogy, if you've ever watched the movie Lion King, when the little cub runs away and then all the hyenas try to attack him, he was away from his pride, and he was being attacked. And that's kind of what these traffickers do. If you can remember that image, once you leave, they're like hyenas just trying to pounce on you and get you at your most vulnerable stage. When there's unregulated labor markets that are they're not, when our markets fall and people become more impoverished, and we don't have the means to buy the things we need or provide for our families. Sometimes parents feel like they can trust individuals and they don't think their child will fall into something like this, when in all actuality that's a myth. I'm going to move on from, there is no state that has not been affected in the United States by human trafficking. And if you think about, there's 50 states, and that's a lot of people and a lot of the population that has been affected. You think, well, this can't happen locally, or not in my community. I live in a small farm town, or we live in a safe suburb. Just because you live in those areas and you feel safe doesn't mean it's not happening in your local area. I live in a very small rural town. We have one school system in our community, and as a social worker in this community, I've already worked 3 cases of human trafficking in 3 years, and there's been multiple suspected cases, and that's a lot for a community that's small. And if there's a news clip that I'm going to share later, and it talks about there was some individuals that were arrested in Nashville, but one of the gentlemen that was arrested in that was from an even smaller town than Westmoreland, Tennessee, where I'm at today. And I have to think that if he's doing this in Nashville, then he's probably grooming individuals in that local town that's more rural than any town that I'm associated with. So there is a need to be aware of your surroundings, to know who's you're associating with, who your friends are associating with, and what you're putting even on social media, so that you're not a target of any activity that could lead to, again, hardship. The next thing I would like to talk to you about is the recruitment methods that come along with human trafficking. And this is going to be a strong statement. When I say this, you may think, not me, but all children are vulnerable. if you're a child, you could be targeted at some point because our children are our most vulnerable population. Um, Common methods of recruitment include meeting the immediate needs, including food, shelter, and clothing. And if you think if someone come up and said, "Here's, I'm going to take you on a shopping spree, and there's no limit. You can buy whatever you want." Most everybody's going to think that that would be just the grandest lifestyle. I want to go. I can't wait to be there. If someone promised me that today, at my age, 45, it'd be hard to turn down. And if someone came up and said, "I'm going to take you from your 3-bedroom house and I'm going to put you into a whatever house you want, you pick it, you can have it," that would be hard to turn down. So that's something they start. That's how they recruit. And they begin to recruit girls or young men. I don't want to exclude the men because boys are targeted also. But I keep saying girls because this is a good get real girls retreat. So I'm going to keep saying girls. But the promises of romance and love and acceptance, and most girls, and some of you are probably going, ugh, but you think about romance, we want that. We have a desire to be loved, whether it's by our parents, our friends, our neighbors, grandparents, aunts, uncles, even our dog. We want our dog to like us. We want to be loved. We're human nature. That's the most intimate thing. We want to be loved. So they promise that. And especially when you're preteen, teenage years, those feelings are sometimes, you feel like nobody loves you. I remember those days. One day you feel, oh, my hair's great, it's the best hair day in the world, and 10 minutes later, oh, I hate myself and I hate my hair. So they prey on those things because you are a vulnerable population right now. The offers of independence and luxury items and cash. Independence is something your parents are teaching you now, and I have a 20-year-old daughter, and since she's been little, I've been trying to teach her how to grow into be an independent young woman. But when she was about 11 years old is when she started trying to test me to see how far she could be independent, and we did butt heads a lot. And still, she's 20 and she'll probably kill me for telling these things. I still butt heads with her now because I've done more stupid things than she has, and I'm trying to keep her from those. But these people that are trying to draw you in try to teach you and plant in your head that I can get you away from this. I can get you away from your parents. You're not going to have rules. I'm going to let you do this. You just come with me and you come work for me. And it's all this stuff they're planning. It's like they're just training your brain to go against everything you've ever known or been learned so that they can break you down and mold you into what they want so that you can be enslaved to them. And they exploit position of authority such as your parents, guardians, school teachers, coaches, pastors. They exploit that. They tell you all the bad things, and they try to break down the relationship you have had with those individuals. And again, the flattery, the lies, the manipulation, that is a huge part of their recruitment process. They tell you all this. And I'd like to use sports analogies because I've always been a sports player. When my nephew, he was a really good quarterback in Allen County, and he had these college coaches, calling him, wanting him to come play football, and all of them would flatter him and promise him just luxuries and how great their college was and stuff. And he had went to one college, and he went and because they'd promised him, you're going to play, you're going to be starting, you're going to have the best stuff. And he went, and he had actually committed to that school thinking that's a school because of all the stuff they told me. When he went, the school was actually worse than his high school with facilities. He had to bring his own helmet, and he was so miserable there. So if you apply that to the people are telling you all these things about how they're going to give you all these things, but when you get there, it's not what you perceived it to be because they built up these grandiose ideas, and you fall for that because that's the lifestyle we all desire to have and want, and we don't ever get there because we've become entrapped. Again, I'm going to talk about the vulnerable populations. Runaway children and children that are in foster care are one of our higher populations of vulnerability. One, runaways are already troubled, and they're already searching for something different, something more, something they're not receiving at home. And the same goes with the foster children. They've come from something that's broken, and they desire to have it put back together, or to belong to something that is put together. So these individuals tell them, you can come, I'll be your family, I'll love you, I'll provide you this, I'll provide you a home. And again, that's where we go back to the vulnerability, the exploitation, the manipulation. Another one is impoverished groups, hungry, poor, or people that are in debt. If you think about, if you're going to bed hungry every night, or you're not getting good meals, or you're hearing your parents argue over, or parent or grandparent, whomever may be raising you, about how are we going to pay the bills, or you hear them talking about how are we going to make the rent this month. In your mind, you're thinking, oh, I could help them if I got a job, or if I went. And when you're talking to these individuals that are trying to pull you into these rings, they're promising you, oh, I can help you pay your grandma's rent, or I can help pay mom's debt away so she doesn't have to work 2 or 3 jobs. Or, is it anyone you think that's a great idea? I want to help. I want to be part of that. I want to be able to not help my family struggle anymore. But that's just the way they're pulling you in. It's the manipulation, and it's like a brainwash almost. If you have been a victim of physical abuse or sexual abuse in the past, that's another vulnerable population. If you immigrants that come to this country are also a vulnerable population, and people with a juvenile or criminal history fall into that. Another group of people are drug addicts or alcoholics, children that have already fell into those, because if you're a drug addict, you're needing your next fix, where you're going to get your next case of beer or a case of whatever liquor you may need. And these people can provide those things to you. So it's a lifestyle choice. Your poor decisions become even more poor when you fall into this ring of this trafficking. Here are some red flags that we'll discuss. And some of you may have already seen someone that you're concerned about, or you may have had friends that have talked about this, or you may feel that when I go over these, that you're concerned about this. And I do encourage you, if you know someone you feel like may be falling victim to this, or you yourself, or someone in your family, I do encourage you to talk to someone today. We can pray about this. We can help you with numbers and resources to get to these, to help intervene for these individuals. And again, just because some of these things may be up doesn't necessarily mean that this individual is being trafficked. But these are signs that you can look at and look to, and it may be something you just want to keep your eye on, because now you're getting some more information, and you can monitor this, and you can talk to an adult about helping you monitor these things, so that if this is happening with an individual, that we can intervene and hopefully help this person to come out of this cycle that they fell victim to. Some of the red flags include unexplained injuries. If someone's got a broken arm this week, and before it heals they have another injury, or there's bruising that continuously takes place, or they look like they have rings around their arms or something like that. If that continues to happen, and it's, oh, I fell, or I don't know how I got this, or I don't want to talk about it, those might be red flags that you need to look at, continue to watch, or make someone aware of. If there's branding or new tattoos, and I have some pictures I'm going to share in just a few moments about some of the tattoos that you can look for. There's different ones, but there are a few common ones that we'll look at here in just a few moments. But just because your friend got a tattoo, don't think they're being trafficked, but do know that it could be a warning sign. Um, if they have a lot of hotel keys, rolls of cash that they've never had before, and hopefully kids your age don't have rolls of cash. If they do, that's definitely a sign we want to look at. If they have multiple cell phones with them, that's a very concerning thing, because with the cell phones, and I've learned this on the cases that I've worked, they have one phone that's for their family and their friends that they go to school with. Maybe that's how their teachers contact them, or they do but there's one phone that they use for only to talk with the person that they're enslaved to, and then there's another phone that they keep for business. So if you do know individuals that have multiple cell phones, or any of these one or more of these red flags are showing, that's definitely something you need to bring to someone's attention. If they have a lot of refillable gift cards, those gift cards are often used for bus fares, taxi fares, Ubers, for the hotels to get to those places, and people will pay them when they become involved in the trafficking. They will pay them on these gift cards, so for the next time they need to get away or need to get back to the person that they're to report to. If they wear a lot of sexually provocative clothing, inappropriate for the weather or situation, that's something to keep your eye on. Unable to make decisions without approval from the person that they report to, because if that is the case, then they've probably gone too far and they're probably into this situation very deep. If they claim they have older boyfriends and girlfriends, if you think about it, most of your relationships are with someone within a year or two older of your age. But if we're talking about a 16-year-old that has like a 35-year boyfriend or something like that, that's something that is very alarming, very concerning, and you definitely need to make someone aware of that situation. If it is anyone under the age of 18 that has a boyfriend or girlfriend that's significantly older, even in their mid-20s, that's something that should be brought to someone's attention, because it may not be necessarily human trafficking, but it could lead to some things that are not very appropriate for these individuals, and things that are probably above someone's age and head that they're involved in. Another thing is, we're going to talk about grooming, and this is probably the stage that is the most, I would think, I'm going to say the most, where the victim of the trafficking becomes just, I call this like the honeymoon stage, because when you're in your honeymoon, that's the time you feel the most in love and the most loved, and nothing can go wrong and nothing can be broken, and you're in this to be in it. And this is so important, because this is where a lot of individuals come into the human trafficking, and they see that this lifestyle is so luxurious when it's truly a lie, but they become so enmeshed in their minds in this lifestyle, and this is where they get, and they don't want to leave, because they feel this is just the grandest life, and this is the best life I'll ever have. This is when the perpetrator gains trust and all the information, and they learn who your cycle of friends are, who your family is, and they even this is how they start webbing out and reaching your peers and reaching your family members. Or when they get your information, they know who your friends is, and they may not necessarily target that friend because that's an inner circle of yours, but they'll target your friends' friends. And this is how their lies and deception just start branching out, and they isolate you from your family, they isolate you from your friends, they isolate you from things you care about. If you enjoyed going to gymnastics, you may no longer do those things. Or if you enjoyed your church youth group, this is where they start pulling you away from the things you want, and they isolate you, and you're there, and you're in their on their turf, and you're not allowed to leave, you're not allowed to go anywhere without them, without their permission, until they give you a job to do, and you have to do that job, and then you come back, and if you don't come back, that's when you can get the physical harm, the bruises, the unexplained injuries. And this is the stage where the abuse does begin, and they start maintaining complete control over you. The next thing talking point I would like to bring out, child sex trafficking. It is an illegal form. It is illegal trade of the human being for the purpose of sexual acts or prostitution. In the first 48 hours alone, if a child is on the streets, in the first 48 hours alone, the children are lured into prostitution. So 1 in 3 children will become, and when I say children, I'm talking age 18 and under will be thrown into prostitution within 48 hours of getting on the street. And this is after the grooming stage, and this is when they start sending you out onto the streets to do the jobs. And within 48 hours of being out on the streets, you fall into a lifestyle of prostitution. The average age for girls entering into the prostitution is 11 to 14, and that's a lot of you all here today. And you think about your innocence and how you want to be keep the purity. When you fall into this, and that's the target age, 11 to 14, is because you are so innocent and pure and young, but that is from 11 to 14 is the average age. And only 1 to 2% of trafficking victims are ever rescued, and that's a sad thing. If you think about 100 youth that are trafficked, only the 1 to 2 of them will ever come out. That's 98 children that remain in this, and they're either continuously abused. They bring others, and if you think about 98 people, and the perpetrators reach their family and friends, and if they only reach 2, you think about how the numbers are doubling from that. Even if they reached 1, we're already at almost 200 people that are not ever going to come out of this. And a lot of these young ladies are killed, and their bodies are never found. They become missing persons, and they're not found because they're taken to different cities and trafficked in different cities away from their home, and they have no identification on them, because a lot of times these individuals will even change their dental so they can't be identified. So when you get into this part, this is a very dangerous time during this horrible thing of trafficking. Right now, we had talked about the tattoos and some of the markings. I'm going to have these slides put up so you can see some of the things, and you can, if you feel like maybe you do have a friend or a loved one that you might feel in this, and you've seen some of these unusual markings or tattoos, this is a time you should be talking to an adult you trust, an adult that you have confidence in, and let them know, this is what I've learned. These are some things I've seen. You can tell them about the red flags that you've learned about, and that you've noticed these markings that are on these individuals, so that being the people you trust, begin to try to reach out and help these individuals. The first one is a picture of a crown, and it is a neck tattoo. A lot of times these are placed on the neck. It's a neck tattoo indicating wealth and ownership, because this person becomes the king of your world. You live, breathe, and die by this individual, so they say that they're your king. It symbolizes the victims. It also symbolizes the victim's monetary worth. Sometimes they'll put numbers inside the tattoo, and it's how much this individual would have to make to gain their freedom. And a lot of times it's something that never comes about, because it's such an just outlandish number. The next slide is just a kind of looks like a homemade tattoo. It's a picture of a heart. It's a very poor quality, but still it's suggestive that this is a tattoo that would have been put on by either the victim and their perpetrator, or together done this. It's suggestive of human trafficking branding. Tattoos are often homemade and not created by professionals, because if you go to a professional, they're going to have your identification. A lot of times someone has to sign waivers. If you think about the ages of children that would be in this, have to sign waivers. So they don't want to take you anywhere public, so they would do these homemade tattoos. The next tattoo is this of looks like a barcode. It's a tattoo resembling the barcode, of course, and this is long being linked to human trafficking. So if you see someone with a barcode, I've never seen this. I have seen some of the other tattoos, but the barcode also, they'll put numbers under that, and it's either how long they've been with the person, or it links them to a specific individual, and also sometimes that'll give a sum of money that they may need to get out of the trafficking. Next, we're going to talk about a few myths and a few of the actual realities of this. One myth is that trafficking always involves victims being transported against country, county, or state lines. That, in all actuality, is probably one of the biggest falsehoods, because if you think about a state the size of Tennessee, and that you think about how far it is from Memphis to Knoxville, or even Johnson City and all the cities in between, that could be 6-8 hours. And if you take someone that far from home, they would never have to leave the state to fall into some of those rings. And again, the actual reality is an individual can be recruited and exploited for labor or commercial sex without having crossed any borders. Our myth number 2, all victims are from other countries. And I have seen both individuals that are from Kentucky or here within the United States, and I have worked cases where there were individuals from other countries, but trafficking may be U.S. or foreign individuals. And myth number 3 is individuals must be physically strained or locked up to be a victim. And we talked about this a little bit. You become a victim the minute they start trying to groom you, target you, even try to draw you into this lifestyle. So at the beginning, you're never those things. You're going on trips, you're being given gifts, you're being taken to nice restaurants or shopping sprees, and at that time you're not locked up. But so the reality is that some victims may be physically held by their trafficker, but usually they use the psychological means of control, such as threats or coercion, and that's far more common than being locked up. I have a picture that we'll share with you now. It's about the total human sex trafficking in Tennessee, and I believe this slide was from 2018. And if you look at this is the whole state of Tennessee, and there's only just a handful of counties that did not report. That doesn't mean it's not happening. It means no one had come forth to report that. And I do want to point out, if you'll look at the interstates that run through the state of Tennessee, that's common along the interstates where you can find rest areas, truck stops, and the cheaper motels. It's very common for individuals to be trafficked along those stops. So just if you're in those areas, be aware of your surroundings, be aware of what you're posting on social media, be aware when you're posting your location, so that you don't fall into this or become targeted, or your friends don't. You would hate to post that I'm on I-24 at a rest stop, and then someone that's maybe preying on you, send that to someone in that area to begin to target you. The next point is the next slide, I should say, I'm sorry about that, is broken down the state of Tennessee into four areas, and these are the areas that specialize and services and are safe harbors if you are in this, and it's where you can go to receive care, or you can call these agencies if you have concern from individuals that are in that. In the western part of the state, it's Restore Corps, and if you need those, if anyone needs those numbers, we'll be glad to look them up. I should have done that, but I don't have that. In the middle western part of the state, in Slavery is part. In the middle eastern part of the state, it's out of Chattanooga. It's Second Life Chattanooga. And the eastern part of the state is Grow Free. So if anyone needs information on that, if you'll just speak to one of the adults here today, we'll get those information for you. At this time, I'm going to conclude some of my information that I've been giving you. I know I've thrown a lot at you. This is a very in-depth, sad, and ongoing topic and problem that we do have. And unfortunately, probably sometime in your life, you're going to know someone that you at least suspect that this is happening to. And if you do, please, again, pray about this, but always seek out help. I want to leave you with a couple of scriptures, and I just want you to know that, as I said in the beginning, God heals and He restores. And if you are part of this, or if you know someone, God can restore. He's a God of healing. He's a God that restores. He can mend the things that are broken. But this next slide says, look to the Lord and His strength and seek His face always. And even if you're not in this, this is something as a young person to do. Seek His face. Desire that in your life. Desire to know more of God. And the closer you are to God, and the friends that you can keep that are equally yoked with you, the stronger your belief is in the Bible and your church family and your faith, the less likely something like this could happen. I'm not saying that it won't happen, but I'm saying when you have a core of people that is praying for you, and you're praying for those people, and you're hanging with the right crowds, and you're being fed positive things, even when you feel at your lowest, and you can be fed into, and you're seeking Him, your chances of being one of these victims, and this 1 to 2% that never gets out, is lessening immensely. And remember to always love yourself. One thing is to always love yourself and have that positive self-image. You know, I remember, and still, there's days I don't like myself and my self-image, but I have to love myself because I have to know that I am made in His image. And my God is not a failure. My God didn't make mistakes. He made me who I am to be uniquely different so that I can provide things to someone. And, you know, there's times I don't feel worthy. There's times I feel down and blue. But I have to love myself because God made me in His image, and His image is perfect. Am I perfect? No. And I'll never be perfect. I can only strive every day. But continue to love yourself. Help build up the girls beside of you. Help build up the girls in your church. Help build them up. Help them to love each other. If you show them love, they're going to want more of what you have. You know, Jesus, they may not know what Jesus is, but they know they want what you have. So continue to love yourself, and know that the people in this room, the people that are bringing this retreat together, they love you. They may not know you by name, but they love you because they want you not to be a statistic. They don't want you to fall in these. They want you to love yourself. And I want you to know that I love you, and I've been praying over this retreat since I was even asked to be part of it. And I want you all to learn to love yourself. And I'm going to leave you with this scripture, and know that there are people here for you. If you're hurting, if any of this has touched your heart, if you know someone that you need to pray for, they need that intervention right now, now's the time to let someone know. But just know, Psalm 138:14 says, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. Marvelous are his works. Remember to love yourself. Thank you very much.